Hey, welcome back to Shadow Shorts. If we've never met before, my name is Jeff Echols. I'm a senior advisor and the head of marketing at Shadow Partners. And every weekday afternoon, I bring to you an expert or thought leader in the realm of innovation for the built environment. Today is no different. I am joined today by Brian Nickel. He is the CEO and the founder of Allied BIM. And this is going to be an interesting conversation today. Many of you know our founder, our CEO, KP Reddy, because of his book and his thought leadership around BIM. So this is going to tie very well with sort of the DNA of Shadow Ventures and Shadow Partners here, but really looking specifically into the future. What's a problem that's out there that BIM can solve? So, Brian, welcome. Glad that you're here today, and thanks for taking a few minutes to have this conversation with me.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Jeff. I appreciate it. So,
Absolutely. We have a shared background, education and architecture. We're both teaching, we educate at the university level. So why don't you tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do, and then we'll jump into the problems that you solve.
yeah. My name's Brian Nickel. I teach at Montana State University in their College of Engineering, Construction Engineering Technology department. And then I also teach at Gallatin College, which is a local community college in Bozeman, Montana. I teach remotely from Boise, Idaho. That's my night full time job. My day full time job is CEO of Allied BIM. So I kind of fell into this a few years ago, about 5 years ago into teaching, and I've passionately fell in love with it. I get to kind of experiment and use it as my test bed for, education and learning. So,
Yeah, yeah, totally get that.
yeah.
Yeah. So your experience in the field of architecture and design, obviously through that, you're familiar with creating construction documents and construction and you're like you said, you use your classes as a laboratory, and I do the exact same thing. I love it. um, so what problem did you see in the industry, if I can just frame it that way? What problem did you see that led to Allied BIM? What was the problem, and then what are we doing in terms of looking at the solution?
Yeah, so in 2014, I started working for a subcontractor, Bob Harvey, in Bozeman, Montana. It was a mechanical and plumbing company. We grew the company from about 25 employees up to about probably 60 or 70 at the highest point. I ran their design department, and my role as I was the ninth mechanical designer in, and that's not like the ninth person. That was the ninth because he had gone through 8 people before me. So I had some big shoes to fill in the position. And Bob goes, Brian, my vision is instead of drawing out all these isometric drawings on paper to educate the designer on how to draft it, who doesn't know how to plumb, and to educate my plumbers on how to physically plumb. And instead of having 15 different designers and plumbers designing it and plumbing it 15 different ways or 150 different ways, how can we start to streamline this process? So in 2017, the adoption of Revit fabrication parts came out. And what we did is we purchased our first piece of machine equipment, which was at that time called a Tiger Stop. We've since upgraded into razor gauge and a few other linear CNC positioners. But what we realized and what the aha moment was that when we were trying to digitally connect our building information model out to this machine, it wasn't very transparent. It wasn't very easy. It was like banging your head against a brick wall that you couldn't just get through. We had this epiphany where it's like, well, what if we map the building information model parameters to this equipment and we start to use the model to drive the fabrication process? And so in 2018, we had incorporated an LLC, which was basically Allied BIM, and we started developing out some software. Well, that kind of grew. We started building relationships with the Autodesk Construction Cloud Partnership Network. We started building relationship with machine manufacturers and started networking. And ultimately, we incorporated the company in 2021 and went kind of, you know, publicly, selling our software. So that was kind of our journey, and the pain point that we saw was just this resistance of getting the design model into the machine. And
Right.
from there, we've partnered with Arco Murray. They're top three ENR 100 general contractor in the U.S. They're known for building a lot of retail entertainment venues, food and beverage facilities, tilt construction, and we've experimented with statistics with them on their projects. And some of the statistics that we're seeing is that if you take the buildings in our built world, about 40% of that building and the price of it goes in the garbage can due to trade labor. So, there's throwing away material, making mistakes in the field, things like that. And so we see this as a major opportunity for us to introduce machines into the space, not to eliminate people, but to streamline and bring that 40% down to less than 1%. We proved that on a project here in Boise, and we're proving it on projects throughout the country with Arco Murray as a partner. But there's a few other key aspects, but that's kind of how this got started and how we got into this space.
So, do you have any idea off the top of your head? I don't know I'm putting you on the spot, but
Right.
um, what is what's the value of that 40 to 1, 40% to 1? Do you have any idea what that is? I mean, it's got to be a big number.
It's not just in the like if you take a $2 million mechanical, electrical, and plumbing system, you know, and you take 40% of that $2 million, just throw it in a garbage can. I mean, that's
Hmm.
basically the reality of what's happening. If we streamline it and we start producing cuts more efficiently, we can get it down to less than 1%. So
Hmm.
that's the value in terms of the material side of it. But there's a whole labor component side where
Sure.
here in Boise, they just recently Arco Murray just built the Boise Top Golf. We ran a case study here using Allied BIM software on this Top Golf project. There was a plumber that was assigned, and what we did is we basically digitally designed, modeled, and fabricated and offsite fabbed it in Bozeman, Montana, and shipped it to the job site. That plumber received a kit of parts with instructions and installed it in 1 day. It would have taken him 12 days to install that. And that came from the actual subcontractor communicating what his process was and what it would have taken him to do it. He was elated. He was just blown away. So,
Sure.
yeah.
Yeah. So, I guess in a way, I mean, you're bringing efficiency to the process in that you're able to fabricate some of these things. And like you said, you create a kit of parts and here it is. So they're not running to Lowe's or Home Depot or,
Correct.
wherever it is that they get their materials, the supply house, and then cobbling everything together. And not to demean the process of plumbing or mechanical or anything like that. But so you're doing that, but you also have material cost savings, I assume, because you're fabricating it in a controlled environment. Um, are you also then is it also about systematizing the process because
Hmm.
10 different plumbers are going to plumb it 10 different ways if they just have a pile of PVC, is that part of the goal as well?
Yeah. So, Don Jacobs, I'm going to put a shout out to him from Nemechek on the Bluebeam team. He read off this statement to me that just like the light bulb went off. He's like,
Yeah.
NASA and JPL went model to machine in the 1980s. Here we are in 2023, and we're still building buildings off of paper drawings. The
Yeah.
question is, why are we modeling buildings for paper
Mhm.
drawing output? We need to be modeling buildings for machine output. And I think that is the critical piece that our industry is starting to adopt with this industrialized construction route. There's a whole, movement towards this, and we're starting to see savings on that side. But to answer your question, yes, the savings is on the material throughput because we can run fabrication plans. So we can actually run an algorithm on the computer in the web that takes all the information out of the model. It generates a fabrication plan and it tells the fabricator what the best means and methods are to cut that pipe. So instead of having to pull a tape measure and mark it with 40 flavors of Sharpie, he can actually now just download that list and then just run it. And there's two different ways of printing now. So we're working in the electrical space as well. We're starting to take electrical conduit and run it through with an inkjet system that prints out bend instructions. And those bend instructions can take the outfeed table right into a traditional bender or to a CNC bender. So those are the types of things where, like, if you look at the electrician's process or the plumber's process, anytime that they're cutting linear lengths of materials, it's tedious, it's cumbersome, and it's extremely wasteful. Is the point?
Yeah, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So so here you are, 2023, right? And so I guess that puts us, what is that, 40 years behind NASA or something? But 43 years.
A little scary.
But yeah, it is real scary. But where do you see this is where you are. This is the progress that you've made. Looking at 2024, 25 beyond, where do you see this going?
So my vision is that we're going to basically create a series of offsite fabrication facilities. We're following kind of the business model of Amazon, but for the built construction world. So the idea is that you would have basically a national network of vendors, and this is visionary. Okay, so this is not today. This is
Yeah,
future. But I
sure.
believe we will have a national network of offsite fabrication facilities where designers, engineers, mechanical contractors, specialty contractors could upload their models and basically request a purchase order for a scope of work. Those offsite fabrication facilities will do the due diligence to create the fabrication model and produce the fabrication intent. And then ultimately, suppliers tap into that network where they're fueling this space. We can kind of take control of the materials a little bit. Right now, if you go to a supplier and you request an order, you don't have any control over those materials that you're ordering, let alone those costs. So if we create this network, we've created the vendor list for all the national contractors to be able to tap into, to where they don't have to go out and bid it 3 different times with 3 different people 15 times on 15 different scopes of work. Now it could be basically just this connected network and a national standard of offsite fabricated facilities to get the work procured. Now that's way out there. What we're kind of doing is we're seeing that up in Shepherd, Michigan, so the center of the Mitt, we've got an electrician that's actually taking on his competitors' work now. So he's adopted machine equipment, and his competitors can't compete with him. And so, in order to compete with him, they're actually sending him his work to produce it so that they can keep up with their own projects. And
Mm.
so that's what we see as the trend, kind of moving in the future.
Oh, wow, what a proof of concept there. It when you start flipping it like that, that's that really says this is going somewhere. And thank you. All the Midwesterners are saying thank you for the Mitt reference there with for Michigan. That's good. So your company, your product is Allied BIM, and if you are watching this and you want to know more, go to alliedbim.com. The URL is in the bottom left of the screen right now to find out more. And I know that Brian is headed later this year in October 24th through 26th. He's headed to Atlanta, as will I, for Shadow Summit. It's our seventh annual Shadow Summit. We're going to have, if you enjoy conversations like this, and I know Brian was on our was in the audience for our roundtable discussion earlier this week with ACI, American Concrete Institute, on reality capture in concrete construction. Fascinating, in the weeds conversation about a very, very specific topic. That's what Shadow Summit is about. Our CEO, KP Reddy, has said that Shadow Summit 2023 will be a Cliffs Notes version, a recap of everything that's happened in terms of innovation for the built environment in 2023, but also a preview of what you need to prepare for, what you need to budget for in 2024 as we think about innovation. Brian's going to be there. I'm going to be there. Maybe you should be there. Go to shadowsummit.com for more information. Apply for a ticket to that. It is a highly curated experience. It is a purposefully intimate experience. We only have 200 tickets for that. Many of those are already spoken for at this point. So go to shadowsummit.com and hit the apply button up towards the top of the page so that you can be there and be a part of it. I do know that we will have a panel on industrialized construction. So we'll be talking about things like Allied BIM. We'll be talking about 3D printing. We'll be talking about robotics, etc. So if this is of interest to you, you should check out Shadow Summit. Like I said, October 24th to 26th in Atlanta, right on the campus of Georgia Tech, right around the corner from their incubator program. So we'll be there. Starting out, kicking off on Tuesday night, the 24th, with an opening reception and then 2 full days of conversations. You won't be disappointed. It's amazing the topics we'll have, the depth that will go in those conversations, and the people that'll be in the room is another big benefit of that. So check that out, shadowsummit.com. And for more about what Brian's working on, go to alliedbim.com. Brian, thanks a lot for coming on Shadow Shorts with me. Great conversation. We could continue this for hours, I know, but it's called Shadow Short, so we keep it short.
I like.
And yeah, absolutely. I'll be back Monday with another Shadow Short, another conversation with an expert like Brian, a thought leader um, around innovation for the built environment. So have a good weekend, and we'll see everybody Monday. Thanks, Brian.
Thank you.
Absolutely.